The moment of truth is coming for Ukraine and the security of the U.S. and the free world. Hello, I'm Steve Forbes, and this is What's Ahead, where you get the insights you need to better navigate these turbulent times. What's happening with Ukraine might be called a slow-motion Munich. Back in 1938, Adolf Hitler wanted to dismember and destroy Czechoslovakia, a democratic country that was essential to the security of France against Nazi Germany. In a meeting at Munich, Czechoslovakia was abandoned to Hitler by Britain and France. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, the chief architect of this appeasement of Hitler, declared, "The Munich Agreement meant, quote, peace in our time," end quote. Months later, the Second World War began. Today, Ukraine is a democratic country valiantly resisting Putin's attempt to conquer it. Its fate is the fate of the free world. The Baltic nations of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, all members of NATO and all once part of the Soviet Union, know Putin wants to grab them back. Ukraine neighbor Poland knows Putin wants to make Warsaw once again a puppet state of Moscow, just as it was during the Cold War. China, Iran, and North Korea see Ukraine as a test as to whether the U.S. is a declining power that has lost its desire to effectively lead the free world. All three of these dictatorships want a world they dominate, where other countries realize they cannot look to the U.S. to counter political, economic, and political pressures from these dictatorships. China, for instance, would control the vital South China Sea, through which flows a considerable portion of global trade. Upset Beijing, and you will be cut off. Despite the importance of Ukraine in preserving a world where our values can flourish and free people can prosper, it is being abandoned by the U.S. Kyiv heavily depends on armaments from the U.S. and Europe. It also needs our help in keeping its economy afloat as it battles the Russian invaders. Kyiv initially won stunning victories against the Russians, but Ukraine's offensive operations in 2023 were severely hampered by inadequate supplies. Now, Russia has the upper hand. The quality and quantity of its armaments have improved. It has access to the necessary manpower to sustain its murderous human wave assaults against Ukrainian positions. North Korea is supplying Russia 3 times the artillery ammunition Europe has supplied Ukraine. Iran is providing Moscow an immense number of deadly drones. Meanwhile, the U.S. has not renewed military assistance to Kyiv. Such aid is caught up in a budget battle in Washington. European Union assistance is being hobbled by Hungary, which has become Putin's poodle. Worse, the isolationist mindset of the 1930s that permitted the rise of Adolf Hitler is re-emerging among both Democrats and Republicans. They're calling for the U.S. to force negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. Make no mistake, the only deal Putin would agree to would ultimately make Ukraine a rump state, effectively under the control of the Kremlin. Ukraine would suffer the fate of Czechoslovakia. A number of European nations know the stakes of Ukraine's fate. Britain, Sweden, Germany, and Holland, and others are boosting bilateral assistance. The EU is working on clever ways to get around Hungary's intransigence. EU decisions have to be unanimous. But Ukraine is in a bad way. It needs Western money to avoid a disastrous inflation. It badly needs armaments. Yet despite the immense consequences of Ukraine's fate, the Washington politicians are behaving like it's 1938. I'm Steve Forbes. Thanks for listening. Do send in your comments and suggestions. I look forward to being with you soon again.